Hello. Today is another wonderful day. We're going to be talking trisomy. I'm joined by Renae Bradley. Renae is a soft member. She has been for a number of years. I get the privilege of working with Renae as we look at different places to host conference and plan conference and some other events throughout the year, like Trisomy Awareness Month. But man, I just love Renae Bradley. I love her family, and I'm so excited that she gets a chance to talk about them, about Dawson, and about that other guy, Josh. But
Yeah, he'll
that's a
do.
story for another day. But Renae, welcome to Talking Trisomy, the soft podcast. We're going to be talking about the Bradley family today.
Well, thanks so much for having me. What better thing that I know the best is the Bradley family and Dawson especially. So, that's who we are.
Well, thank you again. And again, we hope that these stories um, can help people find hope, find understanding. There's a lot of commonalities. As I've talked to different parents, as I've talked to different medical professionals, there's oftentimes a common bond that gets created because you're walking your own path, but a similar path with other families. And so if you're a new and expectant parent, and you just received diagnoses of a trisomy 18, 13, or other related disorder, our thoughts and prayers are with you. We hope the words spoken today can bring comfort, can bring understanding, can help you with information on making challenging decisions. For those with living children, we hope this brings some happiness and some joy to your life. I know there's a lot of things that families with living children with these conditions, they can do a lot. And so hopefully this can bring some thoughts, and those that are tender in our hearts, those that have angel children that have passed on. We hope that these stories can help you smile and remember your own child, your own nieces and nephews, and others that have crossed your path. So, Renae, with that further said, let's talk about you. Like, no more about this, about me, about soft. Let's talk about the Bradley family. Renae, tell me about you. What are you up to? Let's talk about like what the family's up to. You guys got like 1,000 things going on every day.
Oh,
So, how about you
crazy.
introduce yourself and tell me what the family's up to?
Okay, well, I'm Renae Bradley, and I have been a part of SOLVE since Dawson was born in 2005. We have always been very connected. We've got some of our biggest hope stories from our first connection with Barb, with John, just wonderful experience. It's soft has always been really special to us. And so, what better way to appreciate an organization than to give back? And so I am currently the director of the annual conference, which is our Super Bowl. And I love it because I basically get to just love people. And that's who I am. Definitely love language of caring for people, and serving people. I'm married to Josh, which Josh Bradley, if you don't know, he's an incredible man. Let me just say that. He is mine, but I'm pretty prejudiced for him. No, that's not the right word. I favor him a lot. You know.
There you go.
So there you go. So we've been married this year. We were married 28 years. And our relationship has just grown and blossomed. At times I wanted to kill him at the beginning, but then from here, we've walked some of our hardest journeys together, and I don't know what I'd do without him. So, wonderful relationship. We have a great time spending together, and then with our children, we live in it's a suburb of Greenville, South Carolina. We live in Simpsonville, South Carolina. We built a home here. And our children, we have, I say 4, because even though Dawson is with Jesus, he's still mine. And so Dawson would be 20 the end of this month. He would have been 20. So November 28th is his birthday. We got to spend 18 wonderful years with him when we didn't think we were going to get one. So we are very grateful for that. We have DJ that is an 18-year-old. How am I old enough to have kids? But then I think, wait a minute. So most of my friends have kids graduating from college. So let's be honest. I'm the crazy one that waited till later. So DJ's 18. Will graduate this May. He is a very loving dude. He cares for people. In fact, he sent me a message this morning and said, "Hey, what size shirt does Dad wear? And can you buy this for me for him for Christmas?" I was like, "Absolutely." So he's very caring and loves big. Then we have Carson, is 13, just turned 13. He's a holy terror. but he's great. He is living with cystic fibrosis and is amazing. Very involved. He follows in his daddy's footsteps of he is a hunter and loves being in the outdoors. Like would literally sleep outside in a tent. Rather do that than sleep in his room. And then we have our princess, Huntley Grace. She is 10. She was just diagnosed with autism a year and a half ago. So she's a little bit of a challenge, but she's very high functioning and very much drama, which is hard for me because I'm the least drama of our family, the least. And so this female's throwing me for a loop, but that's us in a nutshell. We all of our children were adopted originally, and 3 of which the latter of the 3 were through foster care and adoption. So that's how we started our family, developed our family, and no more, no more. I say that and then watch something will come up. So anyway, that's us in a nutshell.
Bradley 6.
The Bradley 6.
Making
Yeah.
up some names for you guys, but yes, and having met all of them at conference, they all have their own big hearts, their own personalities, and get after it. And Carson is a hunter. I've seen some of his work on camera, so
Yes.
he gets after it out there in the wild, even in your
Yes.
backyard at times, practicing.
Yes. He has
So
been naughty.
you guys stay busy, getting around, doing things. Let's go. So I appreciate that, telling us about your family and what wonderful people you and Josh are, helping, create this family, helping these wonderful children, finding them. But let's go back. So Dawson, there's a very unique story there. You
Yes.
weren't in South Carolina. You were in another state. Tell us
Yeah.
about how that originated, how Dawson came to you, and those first few days.
Yeah, sure. I'd love to. Josh and I had lived here in South Carolina. Grew up here, was born here, grew up here, started our marriage and family here. And we were called to help with a organization in Memphis. And so while here, though, let me back up a little bit. We had struggled with infertility. Um, you know, since we were married, we had gone through several rounds of the infertility treatments and just wasn't successful. So we came to a part where it was gonna happen. It was the procedure that was done. You were gonna be pregnant, and it didn't happen. And they're like, "That's the only part we can't explain is why that doesn't create a pregnancy." And so, with that, it was to us, it was like, "Okay, well, that's not our plan. And that's not God's plan for our life." Fast forward about probably 6 months after that, we were called to Memphis, Tennessee, which great music, great barbecue. Don't get Josh started on that, or it will be an hour-long conversation. Um,
Music or barbecue or both?
oh, well, both. He loved Bill Street, and then, of course, the barbecue part of it. He have this huge smoker that he smokes any kind of meat he can. So so we moved to Memphis, didn't really know exactly because the things with the organization we were going out there to help with didn't quite evolve the way we were thinking it was going to. And I told Josh one day, we were sitting at home, we called it the Roach Motel, just so you know. But it was a wonderful couple in our church. The Roaches were their names, and they had a mother-in-law suite, 900 square foot, Nick. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, and a living room and a kitchen. That was it. So the Bradleys functioned in a very small space, but it taught us some of the greatest things in our life by preparing when we were fixing to get Dawson. So, fast forward another little bit, and I told Josh, it's like, "Hey, I just feel like I don't know." I'd always said I didn't want to do adoption because it would be giving up any hope of me having children of my own. And I like to say here in the Bible Belt of South Carolina that, God had to smack me upside of the head. He likes to do that to me often, but I said, I could never do adoption because, I'm giving up any hope. Well, in that same respect, it's almost like it was a thing that God had told me, you're going to meet a girl and she's not going to want to have her baby. She's going to want to put it up for adoption. That's how you're going to become a mom. I was like, "Okay, well, that's kinda weird," and the other kicker was Josh was doing student ministry at that time as, like, an assistant student pastor, and at that time, it was like, "A girl's gonna come into your student ministry, and that's how this is gonna take place." And I was like, "Okay, this is weird." But I was like, "If it happens, that's great." Here in the South, we had to turn our heat on, and so it's extremely stuffy, everything's dried out, so, um but anyway, so I just felt like we're gonna meet a girl in our student ministry. This is the weirdest part, Nick, is we had these friends that we had just connected with, and so their kids were in our student ministry, and they had an older son, and Josh was speaking on a Wednesday night, told her story, told how infertility, 3 failed adoptions, nothing had happened. And he told our story that night was the weirdest things. They went home and their son come home and said, "Mom, I've got a girlfriend. It's not my child, but she's pregnant. She wants to put the baby up for adoption, but she wants it to be an open adoption." And I'm like, "You're kidding me. This is not happening," because that was what my heart was. I wanted to love on the mom because she was giving me a gift that was so much greater than I could even think of or imagine. Because I knew, how do you have a child and then give it away? So we're like, "Okay." So that was on a Wednesday night that the son came home, told her. On Thursday, that family called us and said, "Hey, is this something you'd be interested in meeting with her and talking about?" And we're like, let's see. Yes. So, because here we are, had, for 10 years wanted to have children and had not started that process. So we met with her. That was Thursday when she called me. Friday, we met with them. Beautiful, beautiful girl, 18 years old, just wanted to carry on with her life and had, one night stand. Some may say a mistake, but it was the greatest thing that ever could have happened because I got to be a mom to the greatest little boy in the whole wide world. Some of these moms that I've met at soft conferences would argue with me that they have the best, but I'm just telling you, I got the microphone now. He's the best. So again, like I said, Nick, you opened a hornet's nest because I will talk about Dawson all day long. But
That's what we
so,
love.
so we met with the birth mom, and on that Friday, then on Saturday morning, she called. She had the family call us, and she said, "I love these 2 people, and I want them to be the parents to my son." And so we were ecstatic. Funny part is we were fixing to take 200 teenagers to Destin, Florida for a youth camp. So we're like, "Okay, what do we do? Because we are not going to be able to see her until we're going to be gone for 7 days." So, um, another cool, it's just each part of this journey with Dawson's journey has been so sweet. Um, we started that and it was like, well, I'm not gonna get to experience pregnancy. And I thought this is gonna be terrible. So the birth mom had never had any prenatal care. So the very first appointment that she ever went to learn about Dawson, I was with her. I took her to the appointment. I met the doctor. Then that day, they're like, "Well, since you're already 4 months into your pregnancy," I didn't even have to wait 9 months to get him, Nick. It was like only 5 months. So I took her to the doctor's appointment for the first time, and then they said, "Hey, you're already here. Let's go ahead and do an ultrasound." So the first time she heard his heartbeat, I was there. The first time that she saw him on ultrasound, I was there, and I still have the pictures from that. I'll have to send it to you so maybe you could attach it. But so what was the sweetest thing ever that I was getting to experience pregnancy in a totally different way than what I had anticipated. But it was amazing. I went to every doctor's appointment with her. When she learned something about Dawson, I learned it firsthand just like she had. So I got to spend time with her, invest in her life, love on her the whole part of the journey. And so, going forward, we were never did they see anything, Nick. Like they just said he's going to be smaller. Like he had heart defects that they never saw. But in that part of the world, what they told us later is if they had known that he was diagnosed with trisomy 18, they would have just delivered him and let him lay on her chest until he passed away. So in that part of the country at that 18 years ago, it wasn't even considered that a child could survive a diagnosis of trisomy 18. I mean, everybody, you talk back to Barb, she didn't have the outlet to even learn information about it, where thankfully we found soft immediately after the delivery. So we went, it came to the morning of the 28th, they were going to induce her. And we had no clue if I was going to get to be in the room, but she had told me, if you're allowed to be in the room, I would love for you to. Um, came to that part of the morning. I think Josh and I loaded the car up at 4:30 that morning to head to the hospital with our car seat in tow, and we were so excited. At that point, we had moved out of the Roach Motel and was in an apartment complex, which we had never lived in an apartment. This is all new to us. Our first home was on 5.5 acres. We're like, we live in the country, not the city. So, went to the hospital that morning, started things going. Dawson got in some distress. Oh, let me tell you that I forgot one of the most important parts. When we were coming down on that elevator, the day she had the ultrasound and heard the heartbeat, she said, "Renae," and they told us it was. I think that's when they told us it was a little boy, and she said, "Renae, if you'll tell me what you want to name him, that's what I want to start calling him from here out." That was at 4 months in utero. So we told her, and she was so like the craziness of this all is that she was so excited. She's like, "You're going to get to go home and tell Josh that he's going to have a little boy." She said, "And what do you?" And I was like, "Well, we've already, we know we want Dawson." She said, "Well, Dawson it is." Said there was never any question in her mind that he was going to be our son. And so it was just sweet, sweet time. Again, now let's go back to the delivery. Things had advanced and he was having a little distress. So they're like, "We're going to go ahead and just do a C-section and take him." Still, they're not thinking he has any chromosomal abnormality. It's just he's a typical baby that's having distress. I mean, I've heard that story many times that kids are in distress and they have to deliver. So I get to go in the delivery room with her. She says, "Well, the doctor said you can take one person in with you." And so she had become really connected with my friend that she was living with at this time through the pregnancy, our friends. And I just knew she was going to say, "No, I want, this lady to come in with me." And she said, "Renae, I want you to come in with me if you want to." So here I am, as if I'm just not doing to have to do the hard parts. All these moms say, uh, labor and delivery was so terrible. I'm like, it wasn't so bad for me. I just grinned right through it, held her hand. And, so even in that moment when, she's laying there having the C-section and I'm able to connect with her is built all my kids. I have that relationship except for one, and she's just a little different, but we still send pictures. But when I connected with her there and then hearing his first cry, it was unbelievable. Something that I had dreamed of always was being a mom, and now I was gonna get to be a mom. Then came the twist that we got him out, he looked good, he was born 4/11 at 2:25 in the afternoon on November the 28th, um, and it was the most unreal moment, the happiest day of my life. Don't tell Josh, he may think marrying him was the happiest. It's the second happiest, sorry. So, they took him over, started checking him out. They're like, "He's just really little." And I think at that point they were noticing some abnormalities with his physical features. But they said, "We're going to take him down to the NICU and get him checked out." Josh is he's down in front of the NICU the baby nursery windows with the camcorder. I mean, we have video of him camcording Dawson as they brought him in, not knowing that he's going, down to get checked out really good. So they got Maria cleaned up and ready. And so they took us out and I went down to find where he was at. And you could see him and we're like, we've seen tons of babies born at this point in the nursery and they all look normal. But they put something over Dawson's face and he was breathing really hard and we're like, something's not exactly right. Um, we stayed there. They still had not let us see him. They did take him to NICU and they came back to us and they're like, okay, it got a little dicey with the hospital of, okay, these are the adoptive parents. She still has the right, because in Tennessee, there's 15 days that she can change her mind. So we went down there. The birth mom signed some papers, and we were able to go in and see him. And at that point, he was on CPAP, in his with nasal prongs and all this different stuff. And so we're just thinking, okay, maybe he's just, because he's small, he need a little more help. But um, at that night, we had a nurse she was directly from Jesus, because everybody else had been very like sticky with us, like, okay, well, we don't know if she's going to definitely sign. And birth mom had already said, no, we're going to sign. I'm going to sign. You just bring me the papers. So at that point, weren't going to get to hold him that day, because we needed him to be completely stable. So we went home, which was about a 25-minute drive from the hospital. And they called us about, I think, 11:30, 12 o'clock, and said, if you want to get to see him, you need to get back up here now, because we don't think he's going to make it through the night. So we're like, what? Like, we didn't even go home with that indicator that he was just going to need some extra help. So we got back up there. They let us in to see him. Still wouldn't let us hold him, because the birth mom had to have that paper signed before we could do that. So the next morning, the NICU doctor came to us and said, he's got some medical issues. We're still waiting to confirm, and we'll talk to you later, because they wanted to talk to birth mom first. So came back that afternoon. There was a whole team of doctors standing around him, and they said, we're pretty much confirming that he has trisomy 18. Well, never having medical children, we hadn't know what that meant. So what they told us is, just go do your research. So we went and looked, and some of the things you saw were could be horrifying. Like, if you just think of, like, if you don't Google trisomy 18, it may be better now, but you didn't
We're
want to
making
do
it
that
better now.
18 years ago. Yeah,
More
it is going to be a
stories.
whole
More
lot better.
stories.
So we
If you
went
Google
down
trisomy,
hospital.
trisomy.org, that's what you do.
Trisomy.org. Yes,
There you
that will
go.
take you to some happy places and happy faces. And I'm just saying, my kids are on the page. I love it.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's
Dawson is
just
there.
They're beautiful children. So we okay, they said, come back the next morning. We want to, meet with the NICU and the other doctors, the geneticists, all these different things. Oh, well, we researched, and we would come into that NICU like this that day, like, had not had a clue. So we'd called. We had some very close friends, some of our best friends there, and we said, you just come be at the hospital with us. And the waiting room was full for the Bradleys, and this was not even our home state. This is just the support system we had there in Tennessee from friends at the church we attended. So next morning we come in thinking they're just going to tell us some few simple facts, and they told us, your son, we're pretty confident, has trisomy 18. Kids with trisomy 18 don't live. Only 10% of them survive to birth. And of that 10%, only 10% of that survive to their first birthday. We're like, okay, so here we are coming in as new parents, so excited, so ecstatic that we're going to be parents now. And now we may be planning a funeral instead of planning, to live with him, play football in the front yard with him, all those crazy, crazy things. I remember them saying, you haven't signed the papers. He's probably going to cost the taxpayers more than he's worth. Horrible, horrible thing. Go invest your time and money in a kid that has a better outcome. How much far off could they have been? But, we're like, what in the world? And so I remember that day, again, my husband is the tower of strength, and he has been the biggest supporter, and I don't know where I'd be if I didn't have him. But we walked out of that NICU door, and I collapsed, and Josh just caught me, and he said, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. So we go in, they had take us into a waiting room. I'm crying. Our friends Devin and Jonah came in, and they thought he had passed, with what they told us. And we're like, no, we just had some terrible news. And the room cleared out, and it was just Josh and I. And he said, I don't know what this means, Renae, and I don't know how we're going to survive this, but we just have to worship. So at that point, we sang a song that was like, what in the world? Who? And it was He Knows My Name. And so from that point on, we prayed for Dawson. We prayed, Lord, please extend his days. And so he did. And he made it to his first birthday. And we were like, okay, what do we do now? We never thought we'd see a first birthday, and much less, sing happy birthday and then get to sing it for 18 years, which was insane. Now, I say there was joy in my journey, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. I'd go back and redo it all. The only thing I would change is if I could make, like, I wish it was like the flu or something. You could give an antibiotic and it'd go away, because that's the only thing. Could I have prayed and asked that he would fix it? Oh yeah, he totally could. But he chose to give us an incredible way to look at life in a totally different way than what I was laughing this morning. Somebody was on the radio talking about, oh yeah, we planned for next year's vacation, already have it booked, have it planned out. I'm like, we could plan a month in advance, and that was it. So he had medical challenges. He had 3 holes in his heart: ASD, VSD, and PDA. He had respiratory issues. He had some tracheal malacia, and then he had some sleep apnea, different, just, the whole gamut. But when they came in and said, hey, you probably want to take a different route with a kid with a better outcome, we're like, no, he's our child, and we want him more than anything. And if it's one day, or if it's 1 week, 1 year, or 25, 30 years, we'll love him as long as we have him, until we have to give him back. And so we did that, and man, it was crazy and good. In Memphis, again, our cardiologist is the one that said most of those terrible things, which now, thank goodness, we have Dr. Hamill and all the wonderful professionals that we have that are part of our organization, but that are helping these families pave the way for, better outcome at the beginning. But we were very fortunate. The lady that was our cardiologist said, you will never find a doctor that will do surgery on a child with trisomy 18. Never do heart surgery on a child with trisomy 18. At this time, we're in Memphis. Most people know, St. Jude is there for the cancer treatment stuff. They also have one of the best children's hospitals in the United States, and that's Le Bonheur. So we took Dawson home, and, after 7 days, I think it was, though I'm getting old, Nick, so I can't remember exact days,
Forgetting the
but
date.
in that
Yeah.
vicinity. Mhm. We
About a
took him
week, we'll
home.
say. Took
No,
him home.
no, it was 2.5 weeks. 2.5 weeks we were in the NICU. The second surgery was out. 2.5 weeks, we went home with a 4-pound, 7-ounce little boy that we had no clue if he was going to live. They would not send us home with a suction to clear his mouth. They wouldn't send us home with a SAT monitor to watch his oxygen. They would not send us home with an AB monitor to monitor apnea, when some of those things are the biggest factors in a newborn living with trisomy 18. So we went home, and, you've heard the terrible thing of hospice. We're going to bring hospice in. Of course, they recommended us for hospice. Was the best thing that ever happened to us. Hospice got us every medicine we needed. They brought it to our house. They came and checked our child out. They got us an AB monitor. They got us a suction machine, and they got us a SAT monitor. So hospice in Memphis was amazing. The ladies there loved our kid. Told us about a person that was living in Mississippi that was 30-something living with trisomy 18. Now, that was 20 years ago. And so that was unheard of. So about a month in, Dawson went into congestive heart failure. And this is the coolest thing, is that very doctor that said I'd never find anybody that would recommend him for heart surgery, she had to bite her tongue and say, he needs to have heart surgery. And so I messaged her when he turned 18 and sent her a picture. I was like, look at this boy that made it to 18. And she's like, I'm so sorry for the things I said to you and how wonderful he looks. I'm glad that your family is happy. But again, another crazy thing. So she has to recommend us for that. But then Hurricane Katrina comes and hits our coast in Louisiana, and the number one cardiothoracic surgeon in the United States, he was displaced from Tulane in Louisiana, and he just happened to be coming up to Memphis to work at Le Bonheur until things were back in shape at Tulane. And when Dawson went into congestive heart failure, the cardiologist had to recommend us for surgery. And then Jeff Myers, was unbelievable. He came in, walked in the room. He said, well, why don't we just repair the holes in his heart instead? The PDA had closed up and the ASD had pretty much closed up before anybody had to touch him. And Dr. Myers said, why don't we just repair? And I'm like, okay, well, that again, cold chills, because I'm like, now he's been recommended twice for surgery, by two different persons, one which is just ready to repair it. But he was so frail at that point, he wasn't big enough to sustain a major surgery like that. So they put a PA banding. Man, that little guy just excelled after that. And so we'd lived there a year and a half. Dawson he was born in November, and in January, my grandmother got sick. We came up so she could meet her great grandson, first one ever. I have wonderful pictures of that. And she waited for me to get here, passed while we were here, got back home. Now, again, Dawson's only a month old. He's had open heart surgery. He's making a trip to South Carolina. It's unbelievable. Like, he's just astounding me. I'm like, I thought this kid was going to die. You go to bed. I'd stay up till wee hours of the morning, like 2 a.m. before we got the monitor. Josh would stay from 2 on up, and we'd just sit and watch him to make sure he was still breathing. Kept living. We didn't know what to do. So we moved back to South Carolina, got plugged into our hospital here. One thing I will say is I met people along the journey with Trisomy 18. And some mamas are going to fight, as I think in the South we say, fight hell with a water pistol. I don't know if can I say that, Nick, online?
You can say that, and it makes a lot of sense.
Edit it out if you need to. I was advocating for Dawson, but you got to realize you've got a team and you've got to work together. Now, granted, I go back with that and say, when we came to Greenville, Dawson started having some apneic episodes, weren't sure what was happening. Took him to the hospital. By this time, his adoption is still not finished. So we've now moved him from Tennessee to South Carolina. We're here, and we don't even have legal guardianship. We have a form that an attorney did to say we can make the medical decisions, the birth mom. It's clear. We just have to wait on a date. So, he's getting the paperwork rolling. We're here. It gets a little dicey because, again, we're still not his parents. We have a doctor here, which now we've come to love, because if all the people that could have been on that day, he's one of those doctors that's not going to stop till he knows what's going on. And so I remember it well. That night, Dawson had one of the worst nights of his life. They tried CPAP. They tried everything. Couldn't get him to keep his SATs up. So they had done I don't remember what they called it. But anyway, it's a sleep study. They called it a different name as a baby. And they found out, they came in that morning, took his mask off, said he has had 84 episodes of apnea, some lasting up to a minute. And he's going to need a trach, or he's going to need some other intervention. So that doctor wouldn't come over, and he was working out in the gym, and he's like, when my workout's done, and Josh was like, no, you need to get over here because our son needs your help. And he's like, I'm not coming till after. He was just stubborn because he knew what it was. Now he already had, because Trisomy 18 years ago was still very grim. 20 years ago was still very grim. So I remember him saying to our nurse, I can't help but think if we had a kid in here with a better outcome that you'd be hurrying over here to get intervention done for him. It wasn't 5 minutes that doctor was there, because he knew that Dawson, the adoption agency came in and said, now listen, you can resuscitate him one time, but we're not going to do anything heroic. Again, just another person that's coming in trying to say what they can choose for our son, and that's not okay. So anyway, doctor came in, he has tracheomalacia, he needs that support. So we got a trach and a G tube, which this was insane. Dawson wasn't gaining weight. He needed to be 8 pounds to have his VSD repaired. Dang, Nick, I'm still in the baby stage. You sure I'm not telling too much? um, you can edit it. Edit out
You're
whatever you
doing
want
great.
to.
All
Okay.
the I'm like following along with questions I'd ask and lessons learned and things. You're hitting them all. So I'm listening. Let's go.
Okay. Okay. Okay, perfect. Okay, so Dawson wouldn't get big enough because he couldn't drink, and they said with his heart issues that it was like trying to drink a milkshake running upstairs. So he wouldn't do the suckle as good because he was just wearing out. Because the PA banding, he'd gotten a little bit bigger. I think he was like 6 pounds by this point, a whopping 6 pounds. Most babies are born at 9. Huntley Grace was born at 9'11". Anyway, so we we're like, okay, what are we gonna do? What's the plan? So he's like, well, we're gonna have to put a trach in because he's gonna need the support, and he'll probably need a ventilator, and you're probably not gonna want to do that. And we're like, well, as long as he's fighting, we're gonna fight for him. And at that point, that doctor knew, and we said some things to him like, when it's his time, we'll know and we'll be okay. That was so foreshadowing for what the end would be. We had no clue. We would speak those words, but then having to live them 18 years later, totally different. The hardest decision. So we'd get a trach. He's like, while we're in there doing a trach, we should just go ahead and do a G tube so he can gain weight. Man, Nick, if you see the pictures after he got his trach and G tube, because he was able to grow without having to fight for nutrition. And so we called him a chunky little dude, but I mean, come on, how chunky can a 7-pounder be? You know, I've seen some chunks of babies. And I was like, man, if Josh and I ever had biological children, okay, they probably were chunky kids. But these kids, you could tell they were not biologically ours. They were also skinny. Dawson got that. He began to flourish, and we met an incredible doctor here, which he is still, hands down, one of the greatest human being there has been. Dr. Carey's just one step above him, but he was pretty awesome. So he, again, was a believer, and so he came in, he said, yes, he's got trisomy 18, but we want to see him flourish. Once again, this doctor said, I've taken care of enough children with trisomy 18 to know some of them don't survive, but as he grows, if I see him get up to 8 pounds and I feel like it will benefit him and be for him and not to him, I would highly recommend Dawson for heart surgery. So Dawson began to grow. He got to be 8 pounds. And then that one, we would have an appointment every 3 months with cardiologists. And we come to that point. I think Dawson weighed I think it was 8, 9 at the appointment. And I come walking, I was like, he's never going to say it. They're still going to try to push. Okay, well, we'd rather him be 9 pounds. We came in and Dr. Roniker said, well, Josh and Renae, he's 8 pounds now. Let's get this heart repaired. And we're like, what? What are you talking about? No, no. And so, and even now, some of my friends that, we've told about MUSC and the doctor there that did our surgery, he's a long time retired, but now they don't like to. They don't say they won't. They don't like to do surgery on a kid with a trach. Well, what was when we were talking about heart surgery, what was the hardest thing everybody say? A kid with trisomy 18 begins to be completely dependent on a trach and vent, and you never get them extubated after heart surgery. Well, hello, Dawson had an open airway, but remember they didn't do heart surgery on kids with trach because it's an easy cross contamination for infection. Well, Dr. Roniker said, yeah, I'm going to send you to MUSC down in Charleston, South Carolina to talk to, get this, Dr. Bradley. Isn't that hilarious? Dr. Bradley worked on Dawson Bradley. And talked to him, took him down to do the testing. He's like, I think he'd totally benefit from having his VSD repaired and his PA band removed. And we're like, wait a minute. We thought we were just going to go and listen and we're going to have another doctor who's going to fight. But again, it was just people fight. We've been very fortunate. Some of the stories I hear from families on a, daily basis, they don't have a support system and doctors that want to give, I say aggressive care. That's probably not the right word, but aggressive care for our kids. And I had them all along the way. Anyway, we're like, okay, so what is this 2 or 3 months down the road? And they're like, no, we're going to bring you back in like 3 weeks and we're going to do all the scans and then we'll do surgery on that Friday. We're like, what? I said, you're going to do it with a trach? He's like, yeah, it'll be the easiest thing to get him off the ventilator. Pop it off. It doesn't work. We'll pop it back on. Pop it off. It doesn't work. We'll pop it back on. We're like, wait, this is unheard of. So we went home. By this time we had DJ. We didn't have any of the other kids yet. Dawson and DJ got to spend a lot of time together and it was the sweetest relationship. DJ's favorite, because Dawson, come on, he had a huge honking TV at the end of the road because we are at the end of the road. Oh my Lord. The end of his bed, because we're trying to, give him the stimulation to, okay, watch cartoons. He loved Mickey Mouse. He would interact with him. He'd talk to him. It was insane. So DJ hung out in the bed. We got some of the sweetest pictures where DJ's sucking his thumb and he's curled up next to Dawson. Dawson's totally watching him and just grinning. Like anytime DJ would come into the room, he would smile. Now, this is the kid that's going to cry all the time because he's in pain and he's miserable. This is the kid that will never have interaction with us and he'll never love life because he'll be so miserable. You'll have to medicate him all the time to be comfortable. No, I never, even in major surgery, spine surgery, heart surgery, the child never had maybe half a day of pain medication and he would smile from ear to ear. In fact, after his heart surgery, you can see the big old bandage on his chest. He's got a passy that's this much of his face, but you can still see him grinning around it on a ventilator, pumping air. This is less than 8 hours after his surgery. Happiest, was full of joy for 18 years. So we went down on a Thursday. They did all the testing. They were going to do the surgery on Friday. They were like, come prepared to stay here 2 weeks. We'll put you in the Ronald McDonald house. One parent can stay, one can sleep over there. We'll just rotate it. You'll be here for 2 weeks. Okay. So we sent him back for surgery on that Friday, early morning. We sat biting our teeth with the update of the IV started, the echo machine's on, the bypass machine's on. Okay. And we're like, that was the longest, like 2 hours of our life.
Yeah.
And then they call, he's off the ECMO. He's on the ventilator. We're headed to recovery. So we're like, oh my gosh, that was way too easy. Something's going to be happening. We went back and seen him. He was resting comfortably. And then he woke up that evening, and so we got our dinner. All of our family was there. We came back for the visiting hours that evening, and Nick, he was awake. He was smiling. It was insane. So we went to bed that night because they wouldn't allow us to stay in the ICU. Went to bed that night. They said around 2 a.m., he was able to come off the vent and needed no support respiratory-wise because he had that trach that we could aggressively get him off of. He's eating by the next morning. This is Saturday morning. He's eating by the next morning by G-tube. He comes out of ICU to a regular room. We're able to stay with him. Weekend, okay, we're doing good here. Our family goes home Sunday afternoon, so it's just Josh and I, and they're like, we're going to rotate. We got a room at the Ronald McDonald house that night on Saturday night. So Josh slept over there. I stayed with Dawson in the room. And so Josh got over early on Monday morning, and we were waiting for rounds. And so Dr. Bradley comes in and goes, he's doing great. We're going to get an echo of his heart. They gave us a picture of his little heart with his little patch over his VSD. Everything's shunting right. How y'all feel about going home? We're like, what? Dawson had a weekend heart surgery? How is that possible? He's got trisomy 18. He's not going to defy the odds. What typical kid goes home weekend? So he had a weekend heart surgery. We love telling that part of his story because how much stronger could a little boy be? And he just took off, took off. He would walk in a walker. Um, he hated to eat. He is not like his mom and dad because we love to eat, but the only thing he would let is occasional ice cream, but he loved life. He, of course, like I said, it wasn't easy, but he was happy, and, we went on living life, and so he had done so well, not really had any, major setback. He had some hernias, he had, let's see, for so that was at 18 months, he had his heart repair, and they had told us he probably will never be decannulated because his airways are so floppy. And if you hear Dr. Green give any of his workshops, it's always the aggressive care at birth with the respiratory and the airway. If we can get that addressed, these kids are living. So Dawson had his trach, and at 22 months, they sent us to MUSC to see. Kelly can say this word. I can't say it. The otolungar, yeah, that. The
We'll have
specialist
to
at
like
MUSC for airways, Dr. White, and he said, let's decannulate him. For like, I had always said, I'd tell him at night when he's laying there just smiling and kicking his feet like crazy, Dawson, if I ever get to hear your voice and that trait comes out, I will never fuss about that. Now, I can't say I stuck to that when he was 2 a.m. and I'm extremely tired of him pulling all-nighters for 3 nights on end when he became a rowdy teenager. But they were talking of taking his trach out. He didn't need his trach anymore. His heart's now repaired. His hernias that were a problem, they were worried about causing problems, is repaired. He made it through those. And now all these hard surgeries, his trach has been there to support an aggressive getting off the vent. They're ready to take it out. So we went to MUSC, stayed overnight. They decannulated him. He did great. Insane. Didn't need the trach. Now looking back, which I will say, here in Greenville, we have the best pediatric sleep medicine doctor in Dominic Galt. And this is the funny part, Nick. He was a resident in Utah with Dr. Carey. Like, loves Dr. Carey. Dr. Carey loves Dr. Galt. It's just insane to see them get to meet at our conference when the conference came to Greenville was so wonderful. And he actually, Dr. Carey invited him the following year, but he was having some family stuff going on and couldn't attend. But he's like, please remember me for future conferences. So anyway, as he moved forward, Dawson just lived, and he just lived, and these birthdays kept coming, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I'm like, Josh, we have a kid that wasn't going to live 30 to 60 days, and he's about to be double digits. How is this? So, again, it was just wonderful, wonderful experience. So we had a huge birthday party, invited doctors, and there's so many of them that came. But that's what I'll tell families that are new to this journey. Don't go into this medical journey with a child that needs medical professionals to be on your side and try to fight them and just I call it bulldozing ahead and not taking their advice. Work as a team. I will say, I think that's, I know that I'm super sweet, but, Josh ain't always super sweet. So he could let them know in a very professional way and advocate, but still have respect. And I think that's what in some of the relationships we may be missing is that we think, which our doctors here, again, I was very fortunate that our doctors, anytime I'd come into an appointment, they would say, we're the medical doctor and the professional in sleep medicine, or cardiology or, pulmonology, but you're Dawson's specialist. You know everything about Dawson, and he writes things in a different way than every typical kid may. So, but that's one bit of advice I can give, and after walking it for 18 years, and I have talked to some families just trying to be a support, and they've got this, they're mad at the world. Yes, your child's been dealt a rough hand of trisomy 18, but oh my gosh, your kid's been dealt a hand of trisomy 18. and they can be wonderful. And even in that pre-journey of, in utero, and you get that diagnosis, I never knew that ahead of time. But what a wonderful experience to let him write his own story and not have a predestined story for what it's going to be. And how many of people are there? I know there's other families in our organization that have adopted children with trisomy 18. And I get the same response, like, there's another option. If your choices are what's important. What the pathway is for you is what's important. But I will say, you can give them to a family if you're willing to carry them. There's families out there that long for that dedication. I don't think I knew how much value he gave me until I didn't have it, and I felt like he was my purpose. And when Dawson went to heaven, it was, I didn't have a purpose anymore. I didn't feel like anybody needed me. My kids were so independent. They didn't need me. Now, granted, they can't wash their clothes, or they can't, Carson could feed the whole family. In fact, we used to say Carson could literally take care of Dawson and all the rest of them, and they'd be fine to leave him here with just Carson. I never felt like I didn't have a purpose until Dawson wasn't here. But it is the greatest joy. And even though it was hard, there were days that were super, super hard, it was worth it all. And there's other families, might call us weird families, that, we would choose that for our lives, because if I didn't have Josh, I probably would already have another child with trisomy 18 in my house, because I love the journey. It gave me so much purpose. It gave me so much joy. If you look back at the 20-year-old Renae, I would have never said I could do anything like this. In fact, I remember when they wanted to put his trach in when he was a baby, I was like, I can't do a trach. I can maybe do a G-tube, or I could play. Now, how crazy does this sound, Nick? I could probably place the NG tube down. Now, let me tell you something. You had to measure from here to down here. That's some complicated stuff. And I did it. You had to measure from your nose to the ear, the base of your ear, and then to where the middle of their chest. I can't remember. Again, I was old. But I could do that. How can I not suction a trach out? Or maybe that's what you're thinking. Like, I could never live this life because I can't do that. I can't let my other children suffer. You ask any one of those other three kids of mine, especially Carson and DJ. Huntley Grace does not understand as much because she didn't get to spend as much time with them. But you ask them who their favorite was, and Dawson was their favorite. And again, Carson, he suctioned Dawson. DJ and Carson and Huntley knew how to swipe his VNS if he had a seizure. Unbelievable. You're teaching your kids some valuable lessons that they may never get to experience. And what you'd be taking from that family that you would pass that life on to, because that's what it is. It's a life you would pass to another human that couldn't have life in their own body to recreate. And so if you're out there and you're thinking, I can't do this life, I couldn't take care of a special needs kid. If you do choose an option of life for that kiddo, there's families out there that want to support you, love you, and love your child. So I'm pro-adoption because I wouldn't get to be a mom if it wasn't for adoption. So the seizures were the biggest thing. Again, we battled that from the time he was 4 till August the 1st of 2024. That's a lot of fast forward. Numerous surgeries. Again, doctor after doctor that helped us. Slobber that would be crazy, and we didn't know what we were going to do about that. He was having micro aspirations. Met an ENT that is totally an amazing person here in Greenville. Did Botox, stopped that. Life-changing. Had a GI doctor that was phenomenal, that he couldn't tolerate G-tube feeds, so we put a J-tube in, and he would have these little spurts where he'd have kind of reach a plateau, wouldn't do any better, start a decline, And Dawson, we laughed. He just wanted to change. So we changed his formula. Up he went and got the J tube. Did great. Then on August the 1st, during the middle of the night, we experienced the hardest thing we've ever walked through. And that was our precious boy. Sorry. He had a cardiac arrest, is what has been determined. And I went in that night and I heard his alarm. It's probably 30 seconds. I went in there and he was just different. He didn't look normal, but he didn't look like he was gone. And so I called Josh and he come running in and he said, Renae, he's not breathing. So we got him on the floor. Josh did CPR. Looking back now, we figure that that's probably when he went to be with Jesus. Josh did CPR on him. We thought it was like 15 minutes. Looking back at our cameras, we didn't get a heartbeat probably back to like 35 minutes with the ENTs. Took him to the hospital. Still nothing. When Dawson would have surgery, when he would do that, he'd just take a little time and he'd be back to normal. He'd just all of a sudden like pop awake. So I kept thinking, he's just going to pop awake one day, you know? And so the people kept doing, they put a long-term EEG and we slowly watched any brain activity go to just pretty much flatline. And so, they kept telling us, I don't know, if we'll ever see a complete, like him just stop, but there was nothing, left there. And, they did the test that they have to do to determine that. Our little boy that if you ever I think we laugh about this, but Nick, when we were taking the pictures of the Rare Bear conference and, in Minnesota, and we stretched his hand opener, you'd put your hand on his head and mess with his head. This one would get him squirming. This one, he'd make him, a face like this. If you've seen any of my pictures on Facebook where he's holding the Rare Bear, he's making that face like, Mom, what are you doing? And we got nothing. And so at that point, we knew that very decision that we said we'd know when it was time that we had to make, we made. And on August the 6th, he went to be with heaven with Jesus as I'm holding him. And I'm a preacher's wife, but I got a tattoo because I'm like, this is the last place I held him. And to know I can look down and see that. And we're sitting there and things progress and Josh is watching the monitor and I'm just holding him, telling him I love him, telling him I love him. What a great journey it's been. How amazing it's been to live life with him and how special he is to us. And Josh is sitting there holding my hand and we're listening to Goodness of God by C.C. Winan. And it's like, all my life you've been faithful. And that's what he did for Dawson. He's been faithful to help him through these things. And he gave us 18 beautiful years with him that we never thought we were going to get one. And even with that, it was like we were able to see joy in a very dark place. Is it easy now? Heck no. I have days that I just sit and I'm now, I'm in his room. It's where I do my sewing and my office. And so got these huge, I think they're like 16 by 20 picture collages of him. And there's one, every time I turn this way, I'm on a Zoom call, I see it. And it's like him looking at me. He just had major spine surgery. Again, another surgery they said that they would never do because he couldn't withstand it. We had an amazing doctor here that said, yeah, let's do it so he doesn't suffocate. What you going to do, let him suffocate? And so, again, did the surgery. Again, he'd have these things, hit a bump in the road, repair it, and he'd excel. So, even in that moment of holding him and feeling him take his last breath in my arms, even though it was the hardest thing I've ever done, I wouldn't want it to be any different. To be able to tell him, thanks for making me a mommy, that I would never get to be a mommy if that birth mom had not chose life for him and given him to me. Birth moms out there, and even to Dawson's birth mom, thank you for that gift of life you gave me. Because I wouldn't be the person I am today if it had not been for his birth mom choosing to let him be my son. And um, it was, again, what a ride. Trisomy 18, it doesn't make me sad to think about what does make me sad is that the interventions that some of our kids can't get. And I think back to that one moment when Dr. Roniker met us for the first time and Dawson was 6 months, and he told us, we, depending on how he is, we'll recommend him for surgery or not. He said, what us as medical professionals don't always understand is that trisomy 18 could be the next Down syndrome, trisomy 21. I mean, who's to say that these kids don't live with very good medical intervention? And how non-progressive, I guess is the way you'd say it, of doctors now to think books that were written 30 years ago are going to have what an injustice we're doing to our community of children if we say we're going to stay, even though we have medical interventions that are way far ahead of what we were looking at 30 years ago, we're not going to give them that chance. But it's there. The knowledge is there. And wow, what Soft is doing. I'm so glad to be a part of it and to know that more Dawsons that'll be from here on out to come will hopefully get a full life of 18 years or greater to get to experience life and get to give their family joy and get to, I mean, what we would have missed. I mean, Nick, even you with your sister, like, what would we have missed out? The joys we would have missed out on.
Just everything about Dawson. There were many parts that I hit the marker and said, "Oh, that's a great little segment there that you were just
Yeah.
sharing." Um, uh, you bring up Carrie. I have another sister, Savannah.
Mhm.
Different medical challenges and disabilities that she brought. I'm a little closer in age with Savannah than Carrie, but between the two of them, what perspective, strength, and talking to my parents, they're different because of them. My mom jokes that she would have been just a quiet little mom, and probably just been there, but now she's spoken and, from stage and done a variety of things. Having to stand your ground in a way that's polite but respectful to get the
Yes.
best care for your child kind of changes your attitude and perspective on life and probably your confidence. So what were some
Absolutely.
of the key things to that you kind of look back and are grateful for Dawson being part of your life? Is there any particular characteristics that you can like owe to him?
Well, growing up, I was the only child. And so my mom and dad thought I hung the moon. My dad thought I could do no wrong. But so that gave me a bit of confidence. But let's see, after meeting Josh and the education he had based on what I had, I was like, I just don't know that I'm smart enough. I am. And I am good enough. And so I had great self confidence growing up. But what Dawson taught me is how to be compassionate, love people, and help me develop my own mission statement that I'm a person that was made to help people that need a little more care. And so, what a beautiful way that, some days I think I'm not smart enough. Thanks to Chat GPT, I can write a letter like no other now. But before that, I remember Josh bought me a shirt. He said, I take care of tiny humans. My job is taking care of tiny humans. And that's what I was made to be, is to help people. And I never knew that I was good enough to, I knew in the other things that I was good enough, and the confidence my parents built in me is like no other. But never did I think I could take care of someone um so detailed and needs so much medical attention. But I I am smart enough, and I think, God chooses different people for different things, and I think he chose me to be a medical mama. What's funny, Nick, it was crazy the other day. I'm watching a reel, and it's this mom talking about how hard everything is, and she literally led to what a great joy this is. But it was a video of her giving breathing treatments and shaky vest and putting the G tube on. And man, that's some of the things I miss the most, is those things that made me who I was and gave me such confidence in myself. So if anything, I'd say my self-esteem has grown a whole lot more. And I said I could never talk in front of people. Love to sing. I could sing a story all day long, sung in front of thousands of people. But speaking it, never did I think that. With Dawson, I was able to give my testimony in Dawson's story at a convention in front of 300 women, and it was unbelievable. I got nervous at the beginning, but once I got going like this, I was nervous about this, but I'm like,
But here
okay,
we are.
I know this person well better than anybody. So
Now, if I could bring up maybe a topic here, there's a number of people that are hopefully listening. Um, I mean, from the day that you learned of Dawson's diagnosis with trisomy 18, that it's how can I say this politely? Like the concept of their passing, of them returning to Jesus, them passing away, is right kind of in the room, right? Like it never kind of
yeah,
goes away, and you're living with this. Um, how I guess where I'm getting at is, as you just kind of walked one step after the other, a common thought for me, Carrie, talking to with my parents, it's 1977. They don't know much going on. They don't have internet. They don't have things of that nature. She lived through the hours. She lived through the day. She lived through the weekend. Similar thought, almost 30 years later for Dawson. I didn't do my math. That was simple math, but Dawson kind of the same thing. They didn't know, and then he was born, and he kind of lived, and he kept going, and he fought, and like you said, he'd plateau, then you'd change something, and it was just kind of walking with faith. But there's always this feeling of and I think that puts a little different perspective on it. It puts it into a perspective of enjoying every moment. Has that
absolutely.
been with you since the passing, or just that perspective of counting every toes, counting every, everything? How does that help you out?
It's a great
Knowing,
perspective. And it's something, if I had not had Dawson, um, I would have probably been that planner mom that, "Oh, I'm gonna plan this and this, that, and the other." But it makes you thankful for every moment. I know some families celebrate days, like this child would live this many days, or, we're going to celebrate. This is 162 days. We never felt like that was what we were supposed to. Did we think every day, are we going to wake up and he's not going to be there? Is he going to pass? And that brings so much fear that you miss out on a lot of joy that you get. And I remember we were about 6 to 7 years into the journey, and I remember telling Josh, I'm like, "I'm afraid," and he's like, "What are you afraid of?" Like, if we know, and I'm like, "No, no, no, I'm not afraid about his passing. I'm more afraid that I'm gonna miss out on the joy because I'm so overwhelmed with how much he's got going on." So from that day on, I'm like, I'm gonna choose joy, and I'm gonna find something happy in even the hardest times. And so things that we would experience when we're at the hospital, one of the scariest times, they'd give us a family that had just had a trisomy 18, or it was their first time back in the PICU after taking them home. We were able to minister to these other families, and so it brought about this thing of, even now after Dawson's passing, we're like, what are you trying to teach us in this? Like, what are we supposed to learn in this, or how do we count these great things? So it made us walk a path of, even now, like, what's Carson going to get invited to for a hunt this season? So it's not like we have to, if we don't know about, okay, he's going to get to go on an elk hunt in the middle of December. We don't know that, but like, living every day to the fullest of what I can. And man, let me tell you, Josh is like, we're going to have to take out a second mortgage on this karate path that Carson's on, because he's already excelled from regular belt to leadership, now to legacy, and even he's been asked to submit for an ambassador for karate. Like, what the heck? Like, so it's an exciting part. And if we had not had Dawson to learn to live each day to the fullest and enjoy every hour, every minute of the journey, even down to that day, when he passed on August the 6th, I can tell you, like that morning, I picked him up and held, the day before, I picked him up and I held him and I took a nap while holding him. But that I would look forward when he was intubated and stuff. I can't wait till I can get in that bed and hold him. Even anticipating what's gonna be the hardest thing you ever walk through, to get to know there's gonna be something happy that if you look at the pictures they took at the funeral, one of our best pictures is of me and Josh holding the balloon as we're releasing it, and we got the biggest smiles on our face. I'm like, "How does that happen?" But we learned to look at things in a whole new light with Dawson. I hope that answers the question. Is that
Did.
okay,
Yeah,
good.
finding joy, choosing joy. Um, you know, I think sometimes with me, going through the hard things lets you kind of have that different perspective. So, I know for me, I'll speak for siblings. I like to do this. With Carrie and Savannah in my life, I'm a different parent. I'm a different employee. I'm a different human because I was able to watch them, take care of them, live outside of myself, knowing that I had a sibling and both of them were just happy as can be, right? Similar to
Oh, yeah.
Dawson. So I think for me, I think we just hope that that narrative, there was what you've alluded to at times was the term incompatible with life. And that was the medical term for trisomy 18. Trisomy 13 had the same attachment. There's a lot of similarities between the two. And a lot of our membership for our organization here at Soft make up those two conditions. There's a variety of mosaics and other, things there, but for full trisomy 18, full trisomy 13, it was incompatible with life. And you mentioned it really beginning at the beginning of your story that like in the Memphis and in that area, maybe not just that hospital, but
Yeah.
at that time, 20 years ago, they would look at this as an opportunity for just comfort care, palliative care. And I shouldn't use the word just. There's a variety of options now. And that's the
Yes.
beauty of this. And so I think you benefited because you saw Dawson fight and you're like, okay, then we'll fight with you.
Mm.
And I've interviewed other families that their child passed within days or even hours after birth. And that's the journey that they're on and they get to tell that
Absolutely.
story and live that. Um, and I think sometimes we got to let these kids make the choice a little bit for us, but know our options, be ready, right? Be
Right.
reactive a little bit, see what happens. And then we have our team of doctors or professionals. So I just love how you illustrated that because here in July of 2025, I'd love your opinion on this. I had a chance to talk to the lead author, Dr. Pyle, a fantastic woman out in Connecticut. But the number of medical professionals contributed to an article, let me rephrase that, a report by the American Academy of Pediatrics that declared that children with trisomy 18 and 13 should be, it's not so cut and dry. They are not incompatible with life, and that they
That's
need
right.
to have options presented to families is really what it boils down to. Kind of let the kids see, let the child kind of show what they're up to. There are a variety of medical challenges, and not all children will have every one of the challenges. But like you said with Dawson, he had heart, he had some breathing, he had some eating, and you went through that. So I would love your opinion now that sadly after Dawson's passing, you lived this kind of eventful life. It fell into your lap. It's a life path that has changed you, changed Josh, changed your children. You wouldn't trade it for the world. And now there's this monumental document. Tell me what you thought about when you heard about the AAP report.
Man, Nick, I cry like a baby because my Dawson, our Stacy's, our Carries, our Zions, all these people that have lived, they helped change that. Their living and their um their fight for life and seeing how they recover from that, they help make that change so that now our Madisons, our Akayas, our gosh, I think of all the kids, they all come rushing at one time. They're going to get to benefit, and the ones that are to come are going to get to benefit from that change that has been made thanks to all the hard work of these medical professionals, the research that's been done, soft that have been able to get this, I just say, information so that it can be out there for people to see and see, yes, our children are compatible with life. And wow, my son in his 18 years got to help with that change, and how exciting it is for me. And that's the reason I want so many people to come to conference, is I want people to know all of these kids are living. Even that's why we encourage coming to conference. You're still carrying your baby. If you ask Raylene Banks back in 2022, how did she feel coming as a pregnant mom with a child that has trisomy 13? You know what she'd say? It was the most joyous time because that was the conference she got to experience. And if she had not known the things that she could have, maybe she'd have thought Faith wasn't going to make it. But, Faith made it. She got to love her. Even if it was hours, days, 3 days, I think it is. She got to experience that. And even if you're on the journey of living, we have these medical professionals out that is unheard of, that they want to help with advocating for our kids. And then on this side of it, never really understood in that walking the journey that you wouldn't feel like that. But I remember the lies that would come at me after Dawson passed. I remember a couple days after, it's like, I'm not a trisomy 18 mom anymore. Yes, I am.
Yes.
I get to live in this family. And that's what I say soft is. We're a family. We're not a bunch of people that just get to know each other. No. The day when they called and said, one of our members that we were great friends with had had a heart attack, it felt like my brother had had a heart attack. So that my son got to help change the narrative, and that Carrie from, good Lord, she's been gone how long, Nick? Like 30 years?
1988. Yeah.
So 88, I mean, she's even now. Pat, that's the reason we encourage angel families to come. Let us love you. Let us learn to know you. Let us learn to know your child that we never, like Debbie died. I never got to meet her sweet girl, Morgan. But now I can tell you she loved ladybugs and she had a smile and she's got some of the best pictures she's ever had. But if you didn't know that, so there's a part on every aspect of this journey you can come. And the excitement, I don't know if you can tell I'm excited with the changes the AP has made, but that our kids will get a chance at life because they can live. And that's because my Dawson proved that. He proved that.
Yep. And so I'm with you. You'll always be a trisomy 18 mom. You'll be a trisomy mom if we want to
That's
embrace
right.
all of our 3 chromosome friends and cousins, if you will. I'm always going to be a trisomy 18 sibling. We always got sibling outings going on. I know, talking to my older sister, who was just older than Carrie, and my older brother, who's just younger. There was 3 in like 3 years. My parents must have been a little crazy back then.
Right?
But they were just, so many benefits and so many life lessons came at such a young age that impacted them, who they are. I was a handful of years
Absolutely.
later, and then Savannah entered our family. Oh, I forgot my younger brother. We still love him too, but the 6 of us are all trisomy siblings, right? With Carrie being our trisomy sister. So yeah, it never goes away. Conference is a fantastic place. There's now grandkids coming to conference that would be,
Yes.
nieces and nephews of trisomy kids.
Mhm.
So when my kids are there, the Lentz kids, we had some, and there's other nieces and nephews showing up. We see you,
Yeah.
Andrea. We see you, Andrea.
Yes,
Um,
Andrea. Yes, love that girl.
Andrea, love her. So, just a great opportunity. Love that we think about the soft conference for that. The AAP report was such a wonderful addition to this journey. What we really hope that it advocates for is just allowing parents. You said it best, Renae. You, at some point in the early relationship with Dawson, you just knew, I'll be aware of when it's time. And as tragic and sad and that was looming over the family, and you guys figured out how to navigate and just really embrace life. What the finality of it all kind of puts us in that perspective of, yeah, we got to enjoy this. But ultimately, the knowing that you knew when it was going to be time, you knew when things were happening. We hope that other parents can have that. And we love to say this, we respect all trisomy journeys,
That's right.
and all trisomy journeys are unique. Some,
Yes.
eh, but man, if we can just as a nation, as a community of people, as medical professionals, empower those parents, work together. Shared decision making is what we talked about a lot with Dr. Pyle, is what she hoped that document would create. And man, that's what I'm seeing. Medical, I don't know if you heard Gina, who's on our board. You know Gina. We love Gina
Oh,
Santos.
yeah.
She's talking about how the
Yes, love her.
hospital she works at is putting together some protocols, some standards of care for children with trisomy 13. And while she's a trisomy 13 mom, so they were kind enough to have her be involved with that. And I've heard other hospitals, big, small, different variety of hospitals, as I've gone through this, are creating these standards of care just so they have a plan. Just like any kid, you're born
Yeah,
and there's a variety, there's a million things that need to be aware of and
absolutely.
checked and quickly identified. And so just having a process in place is something we're calling for. The AAP said it. Let's have these protocols. Let's have these standards of care. Let's have a plan in place. Do you have equipment that can handle things? If you don't, medical, facility, then know where you can turn to if you need it. Just being aware so that decisions can be made is, I think, what I'm hearing. And the fact that
Mhm.
Dawson care, all of these wonderful kids beforehand have kind of raised their hand and said, yeah, we got to take care of each other here. So what a wonderful thing
Absolutely.
Dawson has done, help change that narrative. A couple more questions if you got time, Renae.
Yeah, got it.
But
Yeah.
if we could stay with this, I know you've got a pillow back there. I want to highlight a few things. Um, what are some things for other families that are living the journey right now? They know that day is potentially out there, that they will have to move on and that their child will return back to heaven and will then be what we call them in soft. They'll be our angel babies, angel
Mhm.
children. What are some pieces of advice? I know it's been a tough just over a year for you. Is there any words of advice when it comes to grief and hope and just continuing it on in Dawson's memory?
Yeah. So it's a great question. Yeah, as I live now, for me, our journey is a journey of faith and belief in a Jesus, but in Jesus, not a Jesus, Jesus. So our hope that we'll see him again one day has been something very important to. But one thing that network has been, again, the biggest encouragement for me. I can't even tell you how many things, how many cards I've got from Chris Holiday, how many little small gifts from Chris or Barb. Barb will send me something, a date I didn't even remember. Like, I don't remember. Right again, I can't remember anything. Grief does stuff to your brain too. But m- choosing happiness in the sadness. I remember at Dawson's funeral, like, people, we did the slide video, and a lot of people knew Dawson in the later years when the seizures had affected his brain so much. There wasn't as much interaction as there was when he was little. But getting to look at that video, how many people said, "Man, Dawson really lived. Y'all went a bunch of places with him." So choosing things and small things of how you can help him live on, and again, I think about one thing, Nick, and I know you would frown upon being a story told about you because it's not about you, it's about what the organization is doing. But we were at conference, and Josh had told me how amazing you were with talking to you and stuff. Minnesota conference, we're standing in the board meeting, and you could tell, like, your brain was on system overload. And I remember you sharing at the end, like, man, there's so much more to life than what I'm doing. And it was because of what you learned from Carrie. And now you're wanting to, and now you're the executive director, and how much more of somebody, and you were moved to emotion of thinking there's so much more. It's a bigger idea. And so to see that, even I hope little things that you can do on that, even on that grief part of, we go to Dawson's grave on special occasions, and Carson's favorite thing is to get down and make sure it's perfectly clean, his headstone, and Huntley Grace will run find all the artificial flowers that have flown off everybody else's arrangement and want to stick it around it. So, but choose some one thing we did, and I know the first year, well, last year we did the gift to remember Dawson, to all the gifts of his friends, not just soft kids, but his friends. Um, and I remember Patty Lawson laughing at me because I was like, I want a little Jesus in every bag. And so I had embroidered the bag. So finding stuff that touches your heart, like, okay, making those bags for them last year was great joy. And so you know what, when I was putting the list together, oh no, nobody's getting that job. I'm getting that job. So even finding a way to honor them in the small things. One thing we did to honor Dawson for his year, instead of just sitting home and being sad and choosing joy, we had to make ourselves do this, choose joy, and everything kind of came in the path that we wouldn't do it. But we found a place in Colorado, and it was Dawson's Butte. So what did? We went to Dawson's Butte to honor him on his year anniversary of his going to be with Jesus, and we released balloons. Like, we release balloons, and just finding happy ways to honor them and remember them. And maybe it's coming alongside a family, and you see they're struggling because they're in the hospital for an extended stay. Send them a gift card. I mean, you'd be amazed. I mean, $30 gift cards, that's nothing to us. It's a drop in the bucket. Or maybe your biggest sacrifice, but getting to live on by saying, here's a gift from your friend Dawson and the Bradleys, and we love you and we're in it with you. To know the other thing to do is come to conference, because at conference, you learn how to be together. Like, there were so many new families this year that were just together, and they're like, I'm never missing a conference again, because some of them were on a path of have lost their kids. Some are on a path of trying to figure out things, and there's somebody you're going to meet that's going to know they've experienced the same thing. Every story's so different, but that's a similarity that you can connect with. So those are some of the things we do on a small and big, I guess, with the vacation this year, but just to choose joy. So,
Serving others, choosing joy, keeping Dawson in our hearts. Um, I I just love the fact that one, we could tell Dawson's story, get it recorded. Appreciate you sharing those things. I also feel the advice that this path you've walked. Everybody's gonna have a different path, but the advice that you've been given to choose joy, enjoy every moment, look for the good. What you know, wonderful life advice for families, for people, and so what have you. I love it. Uh, let's. Is there anything, Renae, that you just haven't shared yet that you just feel we need to make sure other families know about, or let's speak specifically to maybe a new family, a parents just received word from their doctor that during the prenatal examinations that their child's going to have a condition that is either trisomy 18 or something similar, and so they're now in this moment. What advice do you have for them?
um, I would say, first of all, your journey is unique to you, and your choices is your choices. But there are families out there, and I know in my part of the journey, the whole part, that it was like when I found somebody that could say, I get it. I understand what you're going through. This is hard, but here's this. So don't isolate. As a medical mom, special needs mom, it's easy to isolate because we overwhelm people, let's be honest. Because they may not have a kid that stops breathing, or they may not have a kid that seizes all the time, or don't have a kid that can eat, that eats normally, that doesn't eat normally. I'd say that networking and that connection, so you don't feel like you're so alone on the journey. You may have a great family support, a great church support. Yes, we had that. But I didn't get invited to things that typical moms did because my kid was a little different, and they honestly, I mean, I've had a friend now that said, "I was so intimidated by you because I didn't understand how somebody can walk that and be as optimistic as you are." And I'm like, what a compliment that was for me, because I felt like I was in the deepest, darkest I thought that's why people didn't invite me, because they're like, "Oh gosh, that's gotta be the saddest thing she's ever walked through." But to hear that on the back end, like she said, "I didn't know how to respond to you because I was like, how can he be in the hospital for 10 days and he's seizing nonstop and you're still as happy as you are?" But that's because there were the Barbs, and there were the Kellys, and there were the Chris Holidays, and there was the Christine. I mean, there's all these people. And I can tell you, at the hardest point of my life, standing in front of my son's casket at a church, receiving friends, had all these lovely people that see me on a daily basis. But do you know what? When I saw Barb Van Hairway and I saw Chris Holiday coming, I literally, like, now I was like, this is so rude. But I was like, push the people out of the way and went to them, because I was like, these people get it. They feel this great pain that I feel. And then you got the Angie McCauley's, that her daughter Madison is out, outliving what she thought. We went to the first conference together. Dawson and Madison were like newborn and 3, and she's coming, and the Allison Thompsons that are there. And I remember Angie coming in our house and afterwards, and her saying, "I know this will be my part of the journey sometime, but to see you walking it with such grace and such happiness, man, that's reassuring and that's comforting." So the network of people that you connect with at Soft, those are your people. Whether it's all the people that I was friends with when our children were living, and now I'm on a different part, and those people have meant the most to me on the hardest days. Barb saying this is normal, and Chris saying you'll feel these emotions even years down the road. We went up, drove to North Carolina to have dinner with the Lents, and them saying, just that connection of we're the only children, and this was our first child, and it's amazing. So keep those connections. They're so, so, so important. And connecting. And we have a great, the pathways we have with Soft are only going to get better, because we're going to have this network of people that you call into Soft and you're like, "I just had a baby and they're on the ventilator. What do I do?" We can connect you with that part of the journey. "We just lost our amazing child. Can you connect me with somebody?" Having that and seeing Soft come to the forefront, to not be soft, but to be, we support families on whatever aspect of your journey you're on. And we want to lock arms with you and do life together. When other people can't say, they may say, "Oh, I understand." You're like, "Okay, you had a completely healthy baby that had no trouble, has never been in the hospital, and this, that, and the other. I don't know that you really know how to." They mean well. In the South, we say, "Bless your heart." You don't really understand. But when you have these people, the Barbs, the Chris, the Angies, all these people that in a minute's notice, do you know, when I was in the front of the ambulance going to the hospital to see if my son was going to make it, you know who I called? I called Barb, because Barb knew what it felt like to be on the scary side. And when I'm sitting there and they mentioned that the first time, that we're going to have to remove him from life support, you know who I called? I called Barb. And after that, I would call somebody that's living with the older child, Kelly. Kai's 22, to say, what do you think about this? But you can get a very uncensored, when your friends and that relationship is there, You can get an uncensored part of somebody's heart that they may not share with just anybody. And so I will say that network of community of people and friends and sisters, like, I want to get away with all these ladies. Let's have a mom's trip, but the connection is so important. Don't isolate. Don't be by yourself. Let people come alongside you and do life with you. It's the most important thing you can do.
I appreciate that advice. Let's wrap up with this. Soft. This is a podcast. We're telling stories. We're telling the Bradley story. We're telling Dawson's story, to be exact. And Dawson lived in a wonderful life. The way that you connected with his birth mom, the way that those coincidences played together, it emphasizes something we always say around Soft. There are no coincidences. Dr. Bradley, what a
No.
funny thing to have Dr. Bradley, and
Right?
just things happen. There were the right surgeons in the right place. There are the right advisors, the right medical staff at the places where you needed them. And so you walk this path, and what a path Dawson lived. And he's going to pass that legacy on to his brothers and his sister, and everyone else that ever rubbed shoulders with him, his aunts and uncles and his grandparents, and just the community as a whole there where you live. I know he was quite popular. So what a wonderful treat that
Yes.
just his years, although we wished for longer, changed the world. Just like any other child
Absolutely.
that has lived even just minutes, hours, or even past prenatally. Each one of those children's voices can be heard. The narrative is changing as we speak. Reports and progress in the medical facilities and just medical technology is catching up to a point where, hey, we can do some really cool stuff. And I'm just grateful for those medical professionals that are at least examining options and trying things and doing that.
Absolutely.
So we hope that every child receives care as a child, as an adult, whatever age, prenatally, at birth, post birth, years down the road. Please treat our wonderful trisomy 1813, other related disorders as they are, as children, as adult, whatever they need, and not as a condition. And that's what's so wonderful about that
Absolutely.
AAP report, because it declares that. With that said, so that's our first thing, is we want to help change that narrative. Keep pushing these stories out there. Keep helping that. Our second thing, which is actually our first mission, is to support families. We support by coming together. That's how this organization was created. Two moms got together in Utah, and then a third, and then a fourth, and then a few years later in 1986, is it? Anyhow, I'm going to butcher that. We'll say the 80s. We had the conference.
Yeah, exactly.
We had newsletters. We would mail them out to each other. Now we have websites and Instagram and Facebook. If you are a family and you're stumbling onto this video and you need support, go to our website right now. Go to the contact us and request to be contacted. We have volunteers. We're building out programs. We're working with groups to create a very just kind of evolve into more and more opportunities for easier support. We also have the new and expectant parent books. They're free on our website. You can download them. If you want to have a physical copy, you can buy them on Amazon. For those that have the means, we're going to be raising funds to create care packages for new and expectant parents. So we can send them the books. We can send them some care package to go along with it. So we've got a lot of irons in the fire to support families. But as of right this minute, if you're listening to this, go to our website, trisomy.org, request via the contact us form, and we'll have someone connect with you. It means the world, as Renae, you put it so perfectly, to have someone that's walked the path. You don't need necessarily a parent that knows all the medical jargon, but you just need someone to be there to listen, to be a digital hug, a physical hug when you meet up with each other. We just need to be able to support each other, because you'll know what's right for your child. You just need a little bit of strength and numbers to get to that opportunity. So we're here to help. Renae, thank you for telling your story. Dawson, what a wonderful, wonderful young man he was. What legacy he continues to live on.
Yes.
We're grateful for the Bradley family, for all the many things that they do in their community, for Soft, and for overall supporting families and changing the narrative. Renae, thank you so much. Tell the rest
Yes.
of those hooligans, your
Yes.
three now big children, a big hug from
Crazies.
me, and
Yes.
go be nice to Josh. Just kidding. Say hi to Josh too, and we'll see you next time.
I
Everybody, thank
will.
you for listening, being part of the Talking Trisomy presented by Soft podcast series. We got lots more stories to tell, so catch us next time. Like us, comment, follow us, share, all of those many things, and we'll see you around.
Yes. Okay. Thanks, everybody.